never one of us. You were nothing but a usurper, a false idol.
Hello Slayers, it's Steven here with the only review you will ever need for the Figma Doom Slayer. Or Doom Guy, I'll use them interchangeably since, it's the same guy. Temporarily leaving home from Ingmor's Sanctum, his resting place for one more romp on Earth to protect our collection, this Figma was sculpted by Max Factory per usual for the Figma line, and released in November 2022. Where one collector or another may purchase, their delivery time may vary. With some having it in hand already, reception has been varied. Some are thoroughly loving this figure, hailing it as prophetic as the series itself. Others believing it to be one of the plebeians left to be entertainment in the pits of the Colosseum for the makers and the priests to fawn over. Regardless, with an MSRP of 11,400 Japanese yen, or on New Year's Day of 2023 exchange rate of about $87, but at the time of solicitation, about $110. Is this figure worth purchasing, or should he be left to the hordes of doom? Let's take a look to see whether or not he'll be worth adding into your collection. When it comes to how the figure looks, let's tackle it from two different angles. Fans of the channel will be impressed because we'll be looking at something different, and it's going to be a bit differently here for other reviews, though newcomers, get ready because I'm going to be going out of the ordinary for the channel, so you're definitely going to want to subscribe. The figure itself looks rather nice, though some of the qualms collectors have criticized it for are due to the accommodations for the amazing articulation engineering. The, quote, issues, end quote, with the figure looks-wise have been cited as wide shoulders and, quote, gappy, end quote, hips, but we'll talk about that. Otherwise, softer details in select areas, but I'll let that speak for itself in a bit. Pertaining to that, however, this line has somewhat historically been known for that, though more so for the less than stellar releases Captain America. I do not want to sound negative, but I do want to make sure that this overall is correct. The sculpted details on this figure, they do look solid, like the gauntlet on the Praetor suit looks really good, and the boots just look and convey the feeling of heavy. Couple this with a nice wash, which brings out the details, and a nice color gradient on the visor. Mwah. There's a lot to appreciate in terms of build quality here. Here's what's novel for my reviews, however. I have a capture card, but I'm not far enough on the PC version of Doom Eternal to get to the point where I can do a comprehensive rip with the game models. Well, not rip, but you know what I mean. So we'll get the models with a capture card. Here's a 360 spin comparison with the in-game model for Doom Guy. The system we're using here is going to be a base model for the PlayStation 4. So it's a little fuzzy compared to what's overall available. I don't have a super high-end gaming PC, but with slight editing, we're able to do the 360 spin and bring out the details that's hidden in the shadows. Also, when doing a zoom in, my camera does get a little bit fuzzy when we do things digitally, but it's clear to see, wow, there's a lot of notable changes. Colors were altered on the boots, the gauntlet, the helmet. Proportions are different. Notably, there's a questionable change to the skin tone. That is not correct. This figure does capture the essence of Doom Guy and his Praetor suit in Eternal, but in terms of being accurate, normally I would leave that up to the collector, but it's clear here it's off. At minimum, there are missing features. A deal breaker? I would say absolutely not, but this does highlight an issue with the line overall we'll talk about at the end. For the next point, let's talk about accessories since we can get game footage, out of the way. Normally I talk about articulation, but that'll come after this. He comes with an array of hand parts, 13 in total, an extra piece for the equipment launcher. We do get an alternate Doom Blade, a support stand with another angled piece. Mine broke, so it's useless now. The Crucible, Chainsaw, Super Shotgun, and BFG. We do get an extra wrist joint and baggie, which are included should you need them. Here are the hands. I did a bunch of swapping, so the pegs that go in them to prevent any sort of shrinkage for these holes to swap. They're strewn about my studio, sorry. They are numbered, and the instructions denoted specific hands for each weapon, but in practicality, the following pictures show the best hands, I feel, for each weapon. Also, do note that closer to the wrist part, there are numbers such as R or L and a number, but you know, yeah, in practicality, you know, the best hands are shown here. In total, he comes with 5 left hands with matching right. Fists splayed. We do have trigger pulling, weapon holding hands with molded thumb touching index finger, and then without. Then for the right hand specifically, 1 for firing the BFG. I assume 1 to hold the chainsaw to pull the trigger on that, and 1 thumbs up. I did lose the instructions note. I think they actually got thrown out. The extra piece for the equipment launcher is so that he can use it. Out of the box, we do have it in a resting position on his back, and this is the piece so he can launch his equipment. Be careful, there are breakage reports. Use heat or use a lubricant if you are having issues. I do have videos on that. If you are struggling, however, know that you can sort of wiggle the swivel up and down a bit and you can pop it off, kind of like I showed you here. Now on this note, let's go ahead and talk about the Doom Blade, which out of the box we do get it sort of recoiled back. We do have it sheathed, or you can just swap it out real easy by pulling on it, and now you can have it all the way extended. Once I swapped it out, however, the one that is pulled back and sheathed, it now likes to fall out with ease. So you will see in some pictures, it just fell out, and I was not able to put it back in without the whole picture just falling apart because Doom Guy just fell over. Now the weapons. A little iffy. They all work fine, but Super Shotgun first. Not paint issues on mine except for a small spot in the brown. Nearly not notable at all until reviewing the pictures that I took. No meat hook functionality at all, like not even an alternate accessory part, which is a bummer. Clearly the Good Smile Company team, including Max Factory, were fans of the game in some capacity because they did the Spider Slayer in the promo pics. You know exactly what I'm talking about if you played Tag 2. Compared to the in-game model, however, the details are different. The meat hook components are the same silver as the rest of the gun, at least underneath the barrels. The barrels are missing some of the engravings, and the reload feature for the meat hook is missing some of the parts that are gold on top of the barrels, at least where there is going to be those that are painted. For the Crucible, lots of small details, which is going to be really cool on this particular accessory. If this one is supposed to have some sort of disassembly feature like the Twilight Princess Link's Master Sword, it ain't happening here. I tried, used heat, not working. Use the hands that don't have the index finger touching the thumb molded together. You can slightly open that set of hands. Anyway, the Sentinel symbols are found on the blade, which is cool. There are supposed to be some on the hilt portion, which do collapse together when the blade is not extended, which would have been a cool accessory to have, probably easy to tool as well. But otherwise, considering the size for the missing engravings that are going to be on the hilt and otherwise missing doodads on this accessory that would be found on the game model, the size, it's easily forgivable. The chainsaw, brilliant accessory and a Doom staple. A very cool accessory, though I would argue, as others may, it's a bit too clean, perhaps a bit bloodstained would be cool, and by default, in-game, that would be correct. The default model for the chainsaw is bloodstained, and it is a bit more weathered, but nevertheless, mostly speaking, for this accessory here, it's fine with the detailing. I suppose this is going to be before he goes rampaging through Hell and even on Earth and Sentinel Prime. He would technically be getting this one on the barge in Hell on Earth, since this is going to be different from the saw that he gets in 2016. Also, it would have been cool if he could get the saw to rotate. That would be neat. BFG. Alright, so this is a bit difficult to compare to the in-game model because of the constant light up that the BFG has in-game, and that LED feature that would be implied that the accessory would have been cool. But it looks like they use different gradients of green, paint, and or decals, tampograph, whatever, to get this effect. Compared to the in-game model, however, smaller details are missed, which would have been accomplished with just a little bit of dry brushing or small paint application. However, I think this one shows what may have gone on behind the scenes with making these accessories. It kind of looks like they may have just used solid colored plastic and put the accessories together that way. And since the accessories are smaller, damn the details. Ultimately, it's fine, but some collectors appreciate those smaller details. Here's going to be some quick action shots with these weapons since we always like to see them. And fans of the channel know I do typically a 360 spin view with other accessories or such, but we'll do something different here. Max Factory and Good Smile Company did something cool here. Remember when I talked about the two different type of hands where he's touching his thumb and his index finger? So the Doom Slayer has an affinity for guns. And oh boy, there's a bunch of aftermarket and third-party guns and weapons like shotguns, automatic guns, semis, and even melee weapons like hammers. Anyway, super sci-fi weapons are the standard civvy grade. He can use them. But let's go back to the source material. Everything here is on UV controllers, so get good scrub, I know, but Doom as a franchise, including Eternal, has so much to it, including the plasma rifle, ballista, chain gun, rocket launcher. Even in Tag 2, we have the Hellbreaker. So there's a possibility for a blood punch effect. What about a frag grenade, ice bomb, fire effect for the flame belch? Boy, the Nendo had that. We have options for other parts just from the source material, and though we get a fair amount, can we get an accessory pack? That would be pretty cool. All right, so this is the section of the review that I was so looking forward to covering. I can't believe I'm about to say this because whenever somebody does, it's usually a negative connotation. We have ourselves here a great value robot spirits. Great value normally means it's bad, but here, I mean, this is fantastic. It's amazing. Some folks have reported back that they have some loose joints with their figure. I don't know. Nothing here is loose on this particular unit. I'm going to take their word for it. Where they've shown examples, nothing's loose on the examples that they've shown. I've seen some people say that stuff is kind of bad. The wider shoulders, kind of like we talked about in the sculpt and the paint section, that all comes into play here. So what do we have? Well, let's go ahead and actually show where the proof is in the pudding, right? So I push down. That's why the legs will split. So for the head, here's kind of what we're looking at. Let me go ahead and disassemble. So there's going to be a ball joint, as you can see, where this portion of the engineering plugs into the head. And then we have a hinge and we have a peg, which will be a swivel. That plugs into this portion of the neck sculpt, which then plugs into the body of Doom Slayer, right? So that section of the neck sculpt is going to be on a ball joint. Then there's going to be a hinge that plugs into a peg. So we have a series of joints that allow the Doom Slayer to look around in a whole bunch of different directions. So what all does that mean? Good movement, basically. And I had never actually popped his head off of that joint connection before. But yes, as you can see, we can push in all sorts of different directions. We can push his head down, we can push his head up, and we can get him to look in any way we want, okay? Now, for his shoulders, this is a point of contention with many. Some have described his shoulders as ugly and maybe being a bit too wide. Yeah, okay, I can kind of see that. But here's kind of the breakdown. So let me go ahead and actually pop his arm off, which that is kind of an issue. The arms do like to pop off, but let's sort of talk about why. So we do have butterfly hinges, which allow you to push his arms forward, which allow for some really, really neat poses, okay? You'll see that in some of the pictures that we've taken for this review. So that allows you to throw his arms forward. Then the arms plug in on a ball joint with a cut, which allow you to raise the arms up and down. We do have a hinge, which allows up and down movement, but you can utilize that ball joint. So this way you can move the arms forward and back. And then as you saw, the arms plug in on a peg. So this way we do have swivel movement at that point of attachment. So basically, what all does that mean as we pop the arm back in? We can raise and lower about that far. We can throw the arm forward and back just like that. Twist and turn. Yeah, all good. The shoulder pads are on double axis or barbell style ball joints, right? So those shoulder pads are never basically going to get in the way of any of any movement with the arm. Unlike, let's say, some NECA figures, like, let's say, Gypsy Danger, nothing like the McFarlane figure, nothing. So we basically have free range of movement here, and these can help with some poses, at least front-facing, for Doom Guy in your pictures. So you can do a real good job of sort of hiding up those gaps. Even if you have to throw the arm forward, you can sort of get it to look a bit more organic. You still will have gaps, especially if you're looking at them from the back, but nevertheless, those shoulder pads are engineered in a way to really help hide those gaps. It would be better if they had a little bit more range of movement, so this way they would be able to get closer to the actual body, but nevertheless, they're there. For the elbows, some people have described them as tumors, and they are a bit mismatched in terms of color, which the prototype did not have, so I will knock them points for that. But they are single hinge, and they do move just like that, but they do peg into the bicep on a peg, so they do have a point of swiveling as well, which does come in handy. They do technically swivel at the forearm, but just because of how they're connected in, they don't really move too well. Now, going back to that Robot Spirits comparison, handling the Ava units, okay, you actually have a neat little trick here. You can pop them out ever so slightly to get an even better range of movement. Keep that in mind. Moving on to the main body, okay? You think it's just a standard ball joint with an ab crunch, and then you look back and you'll see we do have a ball joint that's kind of at an angle and a hinge. So he can really move back, really move far down, and then that whole hinge is connected on a ball joint that plugs into here. Okay, so that's really good movement. Then we do have this section of the abdomen, which plugs into the waist on a ball joint, twisting and turning a bit from side to side. It just helps a little bit with movement. That's fine. Here's something that I believe caused a huge delay with the manufacturing process for the Doom Slayer here, but I don't know for sure. If you look at the promotional material, including a video that Good Smile Company posted, what's on the actual figure? Well, we know that the belt swivels a bit up and down, and that's about it. It's actually, I think, pegged in here, like actual pegs that go into the pelvis of Doom Guy, and then back here, I think they're just kind of swivel joints, right? Okay. In the promotional video that they made for this guy, and in the promo pics, they promoted there would be ball joints back here that you would be able to take the belt and push them being the sides, out to accommodate better leg movement. I loved it. I was all for it. The community had other ideas, however. At least it sounded like a vocal minority, so that was clearly axed. So this was set to originally come out in May of 22, got delayed to October, then delayed to November. So they had to basically go back and re-engineer this entirely, so it is what it is. Hips. See, now we have movement. This shoulder joint was actually really tight. Let's actually take a quick look. I needed to apply dish soap to this joint because it was going to break. So if you do have tight joints, I have a video that should be popping up here to help you out. So for the hips, what do we have? Well, we do have standard ball joints, no pull down hinges in the pelvis. So we do have standard ball joints where the legs plug in. So we can kick about that far out and that far back. He does have a well sculpted booty. So like that. And then to the sides, just about that much. We do have a cut here, which is hidden by the belt, and I think that is there because we don't have the belt that moves out to the side anymore. Now, we do have ball joints where that ball joint at the hip plugs in, so this way we have dedicated thigh swivel, and then we have a little bit of pivot and rocking out to the side, which is cool. Also, I forgot to mention this, on the forearm, the gauntlet, we do have these elbow pads, which are on ball joints, which move as well. So that's cool. Knees, single hinge, like that. And then we have knee pads, which are on ball joints, and they cover as well. So that's good. So when you go to the fullest extent of range of movement, you can kind of sort of use the knee pad to cover up that little gap if you don't like it. But the way this is sculpted, it kind of helps keep the illusion of the full boot, but nevertheless, it's there. Now, for the knees, they do plug in up to the upper thigh area, and they do have a swivel as well. You can kind of see it here. You can do that slight pull out effect if you need a little bit more movement for that single hinge. Just as a comparison, it isn't much, but it is there. For the boots, the actual feet, we do have ball joints, at least it seems, where the feet plug in for the ankles. So we do have rocker movement, of course, and we do have hinges to allow the foot movement forward and back. We do have these guards on the boots, which are on ball joints, at least it seems like in theory, in practice, which do allow movement, which is good, because if those didn't move, the feet would not work. I didn't talk about the equipment launcher. So the equipment launcher, we need to go over this very carefully. This whole system plugs in to the shoulder on a ball joint. So it can move around. As you move the arm around, this will move out of the way, and you can pose it however you would like. Then we do have one point of movement at the base here. This swivels around, so this way, you can pose it how you would like. Be careful, there have been some reports of breakage. Then we do have a point of swivel right here, so this way we can move that as we would like. Do we have side-to-side movement here for the actual cannon in and of itself? No, we do not. But the actual equipment launcher cannon, that moves around on a ball joint. By default here, you can obviously move this around, and if you'd prefer not to swap it out, you don't need to, but this is the more so resting attachment part for the equipment launcher. We do get a swappable part, so this way it's like the deployed equipment launcher. So you can use that if you'd like, and that looks a bit more proper. It actually goes in like that. So yeah, there you go. Articulation. Aside from gappy, I am having a hard time seeing the issues, except for me covering everything. Wrists, swivel in the forearm, hinge, swivel where the hands plug in. I'm just excited about this thing. It's great. It's amazing. The figure is really good. My particular unit, I don't really see too many issues except for that one tight joint, which I believe would have broke if I did not correct it. Other than that, good job. Now to a size comparison with a few different figures from different lines, and he's a big boy, he's pretty beefy. I'm thinking for a 6-inch scale collection, this will be a great fit, and I think the McFarlane Marauder fits in well. The Bethesda resin statues are not quite in scale, and unfortunately I don't have the 2016 Revenant statue to compare here. Sorry about that. Though it would be from Doom 2016, check out Leonardo ETC's third-person glory kill video. It's a really good idea for good sizing for Doom Guy compared to some of the demons in the franchise. But anyway, this figure does look good compared to some other 6-inch scale figures. So, buy now, skip, or wait for a deal. When this went up for pre-order, it shortly thereafter sold out, and then closer to release, it became available again. And now post-release, it's rather accessible. Yay! Now, I need to be clear for bias purposes. Initially, my first real exposure to Doom was in 2016 when I played it in 2019, though my dad did try Doom 64. It was good. I liked it, but it just kind of sat there for me. Then Eternal came out, and initially I was like many, and I liked 2016 a bit more. Then I started watching the gameplay video tips from Mayo, the meme vids from Hump, Dead Key, and so forth, the styling videos from Sylar, mod videos from Prote, so forth, world record volleying back and forth from Absolute Massive and Zamid? Am I pronouncing that right? Anyway, and then the dev team streams with Hugo and Josh. That blew the game wide open, and Doom has blown way up to one of my favorite franchises. I love the FPS genre now, and Eternal is one of my favorite games of all time. That being said, this is one figure I have been highly anticipating. The figure is fine. Accuracies really aren't quite there. Some have reported QC issues with the joints, no communicated changes in engineering, specifically talking about the belt, and questionable design changes to the figure, which do present an odd appearance when we're talking about proportions. That being said, the figure's paint looks great, solid amount of accessories, and the engineering for a Figma is fantastic, and I love fiddling with this. Every time that I pick this up, it's in my vicinity, I can't put it down, and that's a problem because it delays me being productive. Some have knocked this figure for nearly holding this to Hot Toys or Soul of Chogokin standards, which it isn't. This isn't $200, this isn't $300. We already talked about the price way back at the top of this video. However, I do want to note, the Figma line has an overall issue of a price creep, which they're not controlling whatsoever. While the competition, namely SH Figuarts, Tamashii Nations, Bandai in general, is scanning the source material of real-life objects where they can to get it accurate, and it's simply, when it comes to stuff where they can't do that, they're making better product for less. Personally, I love this figure as a Doom fan. I think it's great, but I can absolutely see where thoughts may vary. That's it. The review is finished, but don't worry, there's more Doom to come. We're not done yet. Thanks for watching and stick around for the extended gallery. Thank you so much to the patrons who not only helped out last month, this month, the years who have come and gone. Thank you all. And here's going to be the end card. Be sure to sub if you liked the review. Have a great new year, and I will catch you in the next several